Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday once again. Welcome to Coast Coast College Football Pregame Show, episode number 20. I'm your host, Uncle Shally Bill Shawcross. To my top left corner, it's my Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
Feeling pretty good today, I will say this feels kind of weird, 2 Saturdays in a row. Don't get to wake up and, see the Buckeyes play later on in the day there. But I'm excited. We got a big show here that we're talking about, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Of course, we do still have a big show. Before we get into that, I'm gonna bring in Mr. I Black, Mr. West Coast, Mr. Old Pac-12, still undefeated, Mr. Number One, Mr. Duck himself, Alex Elmore. How are you, sir?
Hey, man, it feels fantastic. 2 out of the 4 conference champions were from the Pac-12. Not to mention 3 out of the 4 Heisman Trophy finalists had gone to Pac-12 schools. This is just, honestly, like I said, I miss the Pac-12. I love being part of the Big Ten. Better conference overall, better conference of football, but it's nice to see some old running mates have success in their new conferences, not just the Ducks. But no, I'm excited for another great week. Got a lot to go over on the show. College football talks, Heisman talks. Can't wait to get into it.
So Alex said we are going to talk about the Heisman. From everything I think everybody's read, it feels like it's a decided vote. But just in case, we're going to talk about it anyway. We still have to do all the recaps from last week. Obviously, it is Army Navy week. I'm actually in Annapolis, Maryland. We're home in the Navy midshipman because I'm obviously the only host that gives a crap about this rivalry and actually tries. But we're going to do that. And then we're going to have some fun because we are going to – obviously, we only have 2 games to preview. We got to preview Army-Navy, which has this weekend to itself, as it should. I think we all agree on that. And then, obviously, with the playoffs starting next week, Indiana and Notre Dame are going to play Friday night before we come back on air. So we're going to dive into that. I think we might have some interesting – I don't think we're all going to be on the same page on that game. So we will talk about that game. And then, like I said, we're going to have some fun. The 3 hosts here, we're all going to pick teams in a snake format, kind of like a fantasy draft, and we're going to pick the 12 teams remaining and see who gets the most points, who gets the most teams in the end. So we're going to have some fun with that as well. That'll be interesting. Then obviously we'll get into this later as well. College Bowl Mania has kicked off. Cottrell, Alex, we will be sharing the link. Anybody can sign up. It's fun. Pick all the bowl games. It'll be a great time. So with us not having a ton of games this week, we still have a lot to get into, so we got to get rolling here. So, Alex, as always, sir, it is your time. Headlines, break the huddle. Let's go.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig, on the center, ready?
All right, well, welcome to Break the Huddle. Starting off this week is the college awards. Kind of snuck up on us. It really kind of got here faster than we expected to. And just some of the highlights of the award show. The Biletnikoff Award, Best Receiver, went to Travis Hunter. Obviously, I'm just going to read a couple of these off, and then we can discuss afterwards. Maxwell Award, Player of the Year, went to Ashton Jeanty. 9 of the last 11 running backs to win that award, by the way, have won the Heisman. We got the Davey O'Brien Award. Foreshadowing. The Davey O'Brien, the best quarterback in the country award, went to Cam Ward. And, of course, I don't think any of us could really argue this. Maybe we could. But Curt Cignetti of Indiana won the Home Depot Coach of the Year.
I'll argue.
I know you will. But those are the main awards. Any of the other kind of not as illustrious awards kind of catch your guys' attention, or did anything on these awards really grab your attention that you want to bring up today?
So here's my problem with these awards. And it's not a problem. To some degree, I think it's a good thing. I truly don't believe that these all get divvied out the way that they're voted, if that makes sense. Like for instance, like they knew Travis Hunter was going to win certain things. They don't want to leave Jeanty out. He gets Player of the Year. It's hard. You look at these sometimes, and it's hard to kind of decipher why they would vote one way for one award and one way for another award. It's happened a lot in the past. I don't have a problem with it, but it's hard to rationalize sometimes. I'll say that. But out of the winners, the ones you went over, other than Coach of the Year, I don't have a problem with any of them.
Me personally, I mean, I have a problem with the Biletnikoff going to Travis. I think Travis was 100% a top 3 receiver this past year. And I even could hear arguments for him placing second on that list. But when I look at that award, in my opinion, I think they've got it wrong the last 3 years. I was just looking back at kind of some of the history there, and it feels like, and this isn't to take last year was Marvin Harrison.
Overall, you don't think he should have won last year?
No, I think
he was hurt last year a lot.
No, he wasn't necessarily hurt last year a lot, but I think it was a makeup award for him. I think he should have won in 2022, and they gave it to Jalen Hyatt. And then in 23, his numbers, he was at like 8th or 9th, behind like Neighbors and Odunze and a lot of other people numbers wise, but they gave it to him. It felt like to me that was a makeup. So I feel like last year Odunze probably should have won the award. 2022, I would have had Marvin Harrison winning the award. And then in 2021, honestly, I think if you look at the numbers and just think back to the impact of that season, I think it should have been either Tank Dell or Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those are the 2 best receivers in college football. Like at that time, Addison had a phenomenal year. And it's not to say that he didn't deserve to be in the finalist pool there, but it feels like to me that this award is really getting away from what it's intended for. Who was the most dominant in their games? And the other one that I wanted to go to as well was the Mackey Award. You look at Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren had an absolutely phenomenal season. Mackey Warren's best tight end in the country for those of you that don't know, but Warren had a phenomenal season this year. Harold Fannin Jr. was the best tight end in all of college football, and I get it. He played in the MAC. You want to talk about competition and things like that, but you look at Bowling Green and then playing Penn State earlier in the year, he dominated that game. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. You look at his numbers, he's second in the country in total yards. He leads tight end in every statistical category. Had one of the best tight end seasons we've honestly seen in a really long time at that level. So honestly, I just think that they got that wrong there as well.
Excuse me.
Jeez, don't die on us, buddy.
It might happen. The longer we do the show, the odds increase. I would say this is kind of what I'm getting into. And again, I'm not saying that they're not necessarily being voted this way all the time. I think certain people have the power to look at these and be like, this is what we're going to do. And again, I'm not saying that makes the awards any less prestigious or anything like that, but I do think there's narratives involved in these sometimes, kind of like Cottrell just went over. And like I said in my opening, there's times you look at these and you look at the winners, and it's kind of really hard to figure out how they got there, or that many writers felt the same way and you would look at it and be like, I think that's completely wrong. And there's that many writers that all voted that way. And I'll leave it at that. I think they like to spread these out. I think Penn State being obviously a big team, Tyler Warren got that love there. And it's again, not taking anything away from him. He had an incredible year. He's pretty much, outside of Drew Aller, I would say is probably the biggest reason Penn State is where they are. He's been their most consistent offensive weapon, but I just think people get overlooked. I think, I think things get made up sometimes. If they feel like they got something wrong, it just isn't on. I just feel like they're not on the complete up and up. Let's put it that way.
Well, just a couple things. Travis Hunter became the first player to win an offensive and defensive end of the year award. Again, just like you guys said, though, giving Ashton Jeanty that Maxwell Award for the Player of the Year. He also, of course, won Best Running Back. No surprise there. Do you think that Ashton getting the Maxwell Award says anything about his hopes for the Heisman, being that 9 of the last 11 running backs have won the Heisman, have won the Maxwell?
No, for me, it means absolutely nothing. I think they wanted to recognize, kind of like to Bill's point, they wanted to recognize that, hey, you had a phenomenal year. We don't want you to go home with no hardware. Of course, you win Best Running Back, but we still want to recognize you as a great player. To me, it almost feels similar to how the NFL gives out the MVP award, and then they also give out that Offensive Player of the Year. Like, hey, and again, this is a little bit different because, it's not necessarily going to a quarterback here, but Offensive Player of the Year not going to the same guy that won MVP, who was, an offensive player. It kind of feels like that to me. You say 9 in the last 11,
exactly.
which is a great number to look at. But then you also say the same thing about Travis, where he's the first one to ever take home an offensive and defensive player of the year. So, I mean, I think you can justify it either way there. But to me, it just feels like they were like, hey, to Bill's point, we don't want to make it seem like you didn't have a great season. We'll give you this award, but you're probably not going to take home the Heisman.
Bill, do you feel the same way?
I kind of do, and I think that's kind of the thing. Like, I think they look at it like we give out our awards before the Heisman, and I think they look at it like, hey, we're going to be the good guys, and then I think I don't think it should be this lopsided, but I think it's a foregone conclusion that Travis is going to win the Heisman. Like I said in the opening, and I think Maxwell's like, okay, like we're going to make sure that we recognize Genty, who a lot of people think should win the Heisman. And I think they just get into a lot of convoluted stuff, like we've all talked about already. So, again, I have no problem with Genty taking home 2 awards last night. But there's just certain other ones, like again, like Cottrell just used a Blitnikoff for the receiver, and going back just 3 years, and sometimes, especially in hindsight, if you let them sit for a little bit, like they just make zero sense. And again, I think people vote, and then I think there's probably a small group that sit there and go, all right, where are we really giving these out to? So, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's awards. I know the kids care, and they should care for all the hard work and, blood, sweat, and tears and all that stuff they put into it. But I would tell you, for Genty especially, he'd rather go play a couple more weeks. Travis is going to be Travis regardless of what happens. Kid's going to go in the top 5, no matter how you slice it, in a couple months. And, I think the quarterbacks are there. They're there for the ride. So I guess the interesting part for me is, I guess it'll be really curious to see where, how is Genty either closer to Travis or are they closer to Genty when we get to the Heisman stuff. That's going to be kind of an interesting situation for myself.
All right. Well, anything else about the College Awards before we jump over to the very busy transfer portal?
Shout out to my Mason Graham winning Defensive Lineman of the Year, as he should.
And absolutely, shout out to Caleb Downs taking home the Jim Thorpe Award, again, as he should. I mean, I think he was the best safety in the country this past year. So that was pretty cool. And then Seth McLaughlin still taking home Remington Award for best interior line or best center in the country. So pretty cool to see, even after him missing the last couple games of the year there, and well deserved, especially after how much flack we gave him, and it was deservedly so, for how he looked at Alabama last year, him having a bounce back year and turn into the best center in the country. Pretty cool to see too.
There you go. And also you got Bryce Betcher of the Oregon Ducks winning the Burlsworth Award for the best inside linebacker. Obviously, all of us were able to get on the podium this year, which is nice to see. But we're going to go ahead and jump over to the transfer portal. And this is where I'm going to kind of hand over the reins to Cottrell and see if he has any big transfer portal news for us, as he pretty much updates us throughout the week as it happens, as does Bill. Look at that. We got graphics.
Yes. So we got some names here in the portal. And since last night, and these were just a lot of the names, like for me, a lot of notable names here. And, I made this last night. And even since then, we've had a couple commits. We've seen just earlier today, probably about 20 minutes ago, Jackson Arnold committed to Auburn University to go be the quarterback there. We had another commit. Jakeem Jackson is going from Florida to LSU to play corner there. So those are just a couple that happened today already, this morning that I've seen so far. But you got a ton of big names, talent in here. To me, I look at this portal and I'm like, hey, you get a lot of quarterbacks and you have a ton of receivers in here as well. So that's the one thing that kind of stands out to me. I don't know if you guys have, a name that's really sticking out to you, or if there's somebody off this list you want to show some recognition to as well. But portal is in full swing here, and you got kids ready to make the move.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that Noah Fafita had gotten into the transfer portal. I was trying to keep an eye on it, keep up with it, but I did not see him enter. I'm a little bit shocked by that. He did not play the best season at Arizona last year, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
If you guys remember, we talked about his decision at length last year not to go to Washington with the staff and stay in Arizona, and we did applaud it. We did applaud it for him staying loyal and everything, but on the back end of it now, I think Washington was better than we thought they were going to be. I'm not saying they were good, but I think they were better than, they qualified for a bowl game. They were better than we thought they were going to be after the mass exodus there. And Arizona was terrible. So I think it's a great move for him. I think he's got to go to a spot for a really good football team next year where he can play for 1 year and kind of really work on getting his draft stock back up. He had a kind of a disastrous year down in Arizona. So it's a good move for him. I think he's got to do what's best for him at this point now and really go concentrate on playing his senior year and playing some good football.
It's funny you say that because if you think about it, Washington is going to be needing a quarterback. Will Rogers is done. He's out of eligibility there. So you would think that – I know they had a kid they brought in from the that 2024 class of quarterback. He's a 4-star quarterback, but if you're not ready to go with him just yet, I mean, Noah Fafita would be a perfect bridge quarterback that you can bring in that already knows the system, that you're already familiar with, his character and things like that. So, I mean, that could be a really interesting thing to kind of look at here. The other thing that I want to touch on with this transfer portal is that you look at it from the quarterback standpoint from that 2024 class, and it's crazy that the top talent like Malachi Nelson is back in the portal. Jackson Arnold was a, consensus 5-star quarterback. Dante Moore was a consensus 5-star quarterback. These kids were all in the same class from 2023, and now they're going to all be on different teams there. I think that's kind of crazy to see, but it's also a case of, I think a lot of these schools have to realize that this is one, NIL is obviously changing the landscape of things there. But number two, finishing in second place may not necessarily be a bad thing in terms of recruiting, because a lot of kids, they may go to where they thought they wanted to go and thought they were going to play and things like that. And then it turns out that, the grass wasn't so green on that side of their decision there. So I think it's really interesting to see how teams are going to start navigating, losing in that high school recruiting battle, because a lot of these kids end up hitting the portal, and even the big name kids. I feel like Malachi Nelson, it felt like it was a foregone conclusion. He was at some point going to be the starting quarterback at USC. We saw Dante Moore play his freshman year. And then with Jackson Arnold, we saw they basically ran Dylan Gabriel out of town to make sure that Jackson Arnold was their starter. And now all of these three guys are on different teams there. So really interesting to see, these kids hit the portal, and then also seeing like these kids don't forget about those connections that they built in high school. Because even Caleb Downs, like perfect example. Ohio State came in second in his recruiting. He ultimately ended up going to Bama. Saban leaves, and he's like, hey, I really like that school too. I'm going to go there. I know the staff. They're familiar with me. Obviously, I can play. And he makes that move. So I think that's just one of the cooler parts about NIL being where it is right now.
The Malachi Nelson thing is very intriguing to me. I would assume more will come out about that as we get further along here. But again, a kid that was a consensus 5-star kid, USC, couldn't figure it out with Lincoln Riley, which is again a little, I think I would say surprising. I think we would all agree on that. Transfers to Boise State, which I don't think any of us would have picked. Would have had a chance to go there and compete, didn't. Boise State's having a great year in the college football playoff, and now even before that, he's now announcing that he's leaving. I'm going to be very curious to see what leaks out of there, if it's the same kind of situation that it was in USC. Because if it is, at some point, people are going to look at the kid and just be like, "You're not even worth the hassle of bringing here." He's gone to 2 schools now where he hasn't started, and he's leaving 2 schools now. I'm just going to be really curious to see what the narrative around him is. Because again, I don't think too much of it's going to come out now. I think once Boise, or whenever Boise gets eliminated, I think you're going to start to hear about it. That's one to watch. Some of these I'm not really surprised about. I saw Justin put in there Alex Orgy. Me and Coachella joked about it, but I said they're going to bring somebody in other than Jaden Davis. There's nobody else in that quarterback room if I'm Michigan that I'm staying there because none of them are going to play. That team is either going to be a transfer guy for 1 year or Jaden Davis is going to play next year, and then Bryce is playing the year after that. So it's if you're not a senior and you haven't distinguished yourself as absolutely being the guy next year. If you're in the Michigan quarterback room, I would be in the portal. Go ahead.
I think the names that kind of shocked me is obviously we heard about Malachi Nelson not winning that Boise State job. There's a lot of talk going on about him not being able to necessarily maybe read defenses as well or pick up the offensive packages as well, which is one of the reasons why he wasn't favored at USC and ultimately not favored at Boise State. I think the quarterback that shocks me the most though is Malik Murphy. Dude had a chance to shine at Texas. Played decently well. Obviously, he wasn't going to be, on top of Arch Manning when it came out to this year, but he did enough to prove himself to get a chance to start somewhere. He went to Duke, had a fantastic season, took him to a 9-3 record. Arguably, the Duke team looked better than it did with Riley Leonard at the helm. And now he's back in the transfer portal. I'm sorry, Malik Murphy, you have the perfect situation. You're the dude. All right, if you are there, you've earned your starting spot. You led your team to a 9-3 record. You're in a weak conference as the ACC. And what better spot to kind of catapult yourself up in the rankings as far as NFL status than staying with a team in a weak conference that gives you the chance to make the college football playoff. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I like Malik Murphy. I think he's got all the intangibles in the world, but I feel like I want to see him in a system for more than 1 year. I feel like he's not going to maximize his abilities, constantly switching systems every year. He needed to stay at Duke. That's my opinion. The other guy that really kind of grabbed my attention and control. I'm sure you have something to say about Malik Murphy. Just give me a quick second here.
No, I just agree. I was going to say I agree with you. That's all.
Oh, 100%. Cool. Then Caden Salter. Is he actually going to leave Liberty, or is he using this as a bargaining chip, just like he did last year? When he entered the transfer portal last year to leave Liberty, and then in January ended up saying, you know what, never mind, I'm coming back. Is he going to be pulling the same stunt this year as a chance to get more money on his side, or do you think he's actually going to leave this year? I don't know what's going to happen.
So for me, I'd say one, just real quick with the Malik Murphy point, 100% with you. I said it last week. You go 9-3 at Duke. You lose to Miami, you lose to SMU, you lose to Georgia Tech. Well, guess what? Cam Moore's not coming back next year, so that Miami team won't look the same there. You lose to SMU in overtime, and it's a game you almost really won. So, yeah. That's a chance to be 10-2, and, that team is young at Duke. Like, there was no expectation this year, and you go 10-2. Like, next year, sky could be the limit for you. So, 100% agree with you, and Alex did to the same point about Malik Murphy. Even if he knows that he's not an NFL quarterback, there's not many educations that are going to be better than Duke. So, I get it, wanting to play in the big time and all that, but at Duke, you were going to have all the games you wanted to. You get to play against Miami. You get to play against Clemson. Bill Belichick's now in UNC. So, that's going to be a game with a lot of eyes on it. So, that's one that confused me as well there. And then as far as Caden Salter goes, I think this is real. I think last year it was a ploy, obviously, to get more money there. Liberty had a phenomenal year. They made a New Year's Six bowl game. Obviously, we know what happened against Oregon, but that was Liberty team that a lot of people were expecting to potentially compete for a college football playoff spot this year, to be that group of 5 team. And, that just was far from being the case there. So I think Caden Salter was looked at a guy that had an outside chance of winning the Heisman this year before the start of the year. And now we barely talked about him. Like, I don't know if we brought his name up at all, like from September until right now. So I think for Caden, he's probably looking at a spot where he can go to a true Power 4 school there, be a starter, get some more development so that he can get his name back up there. Not just in, award talks, but potentially being an NFL prospect. So I think this is the real deal. And he realized that, that magical season at Liberty is no more, and he needs to find a new home there.
I think there's one other player I want to bring attention to that's not on this list. He probably isn't on a lot of people's boards. He was a 0-star recruit out of high school. He was a running back at University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB, Lee Beebe Jr. He is in the transfer portal. UAB had absolutely atrocious season, yet this man was still able to rack up 5.3 yards per carry, just under 1,000 yards. He also had 219 yards receiving, 7.3 yards per catch. Dude can catch, dude can run. He's an absolute workhorse in the back. He was just on a really undervalued, underrated team. And I think that whichever team lands him is going to get the steal of the transfer portal. Because like I said, not a lot of eyes are on him, but the dude can ball. Bill, anything else on the transfer portal before we kind of jump over to some coaching news?
No, I mean, I would only say, we're not done. I think outside of, Malachi, I think a lot of the bigger names that are going to, if they're still on teams that are playing, most of them are probably going to do it the right way and wait longer if they can, not be a distraction. But there will definitely be bigger names still to hit this before we are done. We're nowhere near done. And to add on the running back thing, we talked about it a little bit in the chat. Cole Cabana was a kid that I was really excited to see going to Michigan. Didn't get on the field at all his freshman year. Obviously, that was the Blake, Donovan Edwards year. I thought we were going to see him a little bit more this year. He got banged up a lot, and then obviously it allowed Khalil Mullings to kind of really shine and take that spot. And he never really got back on the field and kind of got in the rotation. And Jordan Marshall was a kid that we knew was going to come in and play for 5-star kid, depending on where you look. But Cole Cabana could fly. He's kind of a little bit of a stockier kid. I think he's going to go somewhere. He's going to go somewhere where he could play. I assume he's probably going to go to a little bit of a smaller school. But somebody's going to get a steal. If that kid can stay healthy, he runs a sub 440. Somebody's going to get a really, really good running back out of the portal for probably cheap, just because he had a lot of bad luck at Michigan. So I'm very curious to see where he ends up.
And then for me here, real quick, before we move on here, I think a couple things I want to say. Receiver-wise, Micah Hudson is going to be a name to look out for. I think he's going to be, depending on where he goes, he has the potential to be in the Biletnikoff discussions next year. I think he's that kind of talent. Caleb Odom being a 5-star receiver from Alabama. I think the school to look out for him would be Colorado. Reason being is that Julian Lewis was his high school quarterback. So I think that could be a big time get for them or anybody really. I mean, Caleb Odom's, I think, another special talent there. And then another name that I actually didn't put on the list just because he hasn't had the potential to really play. So we don't know what he is. And that'd be Devin Brown, quarterback from Ohio State. So dual threat kid that can potentially, go be a starter. We saw what McCord was able to do at Syracuse. And, I'm not saying Devin Brown is going to go somewhere and be that guy, but kid that works hard and really knew the writing was on the wall for him this year as his third year at Ohio State. He knew he wasn't going to be the starter. Didn't decide to hit the portal then. So I give him a lot of credit for, sticking around and fighting even after they brought in, a 5-star kid from the portal and then also brought in Will Howard to obviously be their starter. So I think that's another guy who can come in and be an instant starter for somebody and, get some consistent quarterback play.
Sorry, I was tweeting Dan Lanning to pick up Lee Beebe Jr. in the portal. Him and I are close like that. But tweeted that out.
Before we get off this, real quick, the Quinn Ewers rumors, do we think they're true? And if we do think they're true, who do you think the school is?
USC.
See, I don't think it's USC.
No, USC needs to make a splash. He's going next year. If they have a season like this, he is going to have his job. He's going to be on the hot seat. He needs to make a splash. He needs 1 year of success. And I think that going after Quinn would do it. When they say that there's a huge, $10 million NIL or some huge number, $4 million, thank you, $4 million NIL deal on the table. I look at the schools who are really desperately in need of a quarterback. Michigan is not. Ohio State is not. Oregon is not. Iowa just got the kid from Auburn. I'm not saying that he's going to be the savior, but I don't think Quinn would go to a school like Iowa. Correct?
Why would he?
Exactly.
Why would he?
Exactly. The only other school I could think of that might be like a little dark horse is maybe Indiana. They had a lot of success with that offense. They got a great transfer class so far.
He's not going in. I
don't know why you think he would have to go to the Big Ten. I think for me,
the
rumor is it's from the Big Ten.
I know that, but I'm just saying. I think if Quinn comes back to college, he is staying down south. That's what he loves.
Ole Miss. Go to Ole Miss.
Absolutely not. I would say there's a couple schools that would make sense to me. Him being a Texas kid, Texas A&M had. I know Marcel Reed is there, but Quinn Ewers is an upgrade from him, and if they have the opportunity to get him, they can do that and they can make that move. Another team that is going to be losing their quarterback this upcoming year, Alabama. You get to play in the same conference.
He's coming back. Jalen Milroe's coming back. He already announced it.
Is he coming back?
He's coming back. He already announced it.
I think that's a mistake.
I heard he announced that he was playing the bowl game. I didn't hear that he was announced he was coming back.
He said he's playing the bowl game and coming back next year.
I think that's a mistake. I think you go get your money. You're not doing anything.
I don't think he's NFL ready. I don't think Milroe's NFL ready yet.
He's not NFL ready, but he's not going to be with another year of college football. I think he is what he is. He's a project. He's Anthony. I don't want to put him on this path, but he's Anthony Richardson.
No, that's what he is. With him. That's what he is.
He's a project kid, freak athlete.
$2 billion of NIL he can get next year. He's not going to just sport
Anthony Richardson was a 4th pick in the draft, so that's way more than $2 million.
I get it, but Anthony Richardson, I think, almost becomes the cautionary tale now. Nobody's taking Jalen Milroe 4th next year. That's not happening.
You're right.
Yeah, then 3 glasses of whiskey went ahead and confirmed that he did say he's coming back. But no, I don't think Alabama is on the table. I think Jalen Milroe is the quarterback until he leaves. And I don't know, man. I think he's going to the Big Ten. He's getting out of the SEC. I think he's, like I said, USC is on my list, and then a dark horse would be Indiana. But Coach, so who do you think, knowing that Jalen Milroe is coming back, who do you think he would pick? Or do you still think he'd pick Alabama and fight for the starting spot? Because I don't think he would fight for any.
If Milroe's really coming back, he's a starter.
Wouldn't make sense to do that. But to be honest, I think he's going to the NFL. I don't think there's a school that makes a ton of sense. Going to USC and winning 8, maybe 9 games, I don't think makes a ton of sense.
Caleb Williams did it, and he did it was the number 1 draft pick.
Caleb Williams was also the number 1 pick before that year started. Caleb Williams was also the Heisman Trophy winner the year before. Caleb Williams had nothing
last year. I mean, the number 1 pick.
Yeah, Caleb had nothing to prove there. He didn't go to USC to boost his draft stock. He went there, stayed with Lincoln, and obviously had the Heisman Trophy year, and then won 8 or 9 games, and that was that. But Quinn is not in the same shoes that Caleb was in. So for me, I think he comes out this year. He goes to the league, and we don't have to worry about it. But if there was a school that I think would make sense for him, I think it would be Texas A&M.
Bill, you brought up the question: who is it that you think he'd be looking at?
You want to know who? I think he either goes to the. I still think he enters the draft when it's all said and done. I think he has a chance if he puts a good playoff game or here or 2 together. I think it becomes really easy for him to go. If he doesn't stay, I don't think he's staying in Texas. I think they've made it pretty clear, like, hey, we gave you the year. We're not going to risk you playing another year and then have Arch walk out the door, because that's what's going to happen. I think the Big Ten team with the offer, I think it's 100%. I think it's Oregon. I think there's no doubt in my mind. I think it's Oregon.
We have the QB of the future.
Who are your last 2 quarterbacks?
Bo Nix and obviously Dylan Gabriel.
Stan Lanning's move, bro. That's what he does.
Yes, but we also got Dante Moore from the transfer portal for this.
Guess what though? You have the opportunity to start Quinn over Dante. You do it.
Yep.
I don't know about that.
What have you seen from Dante Moore, bro?
Nothing, because he hasn't had a chance to play. I want Dante Moore.
Don't buy in. Don't buy in, Bill.
I want Dante Moore for the next 3 years. No, I know. I'm sick and tired of the constant rotation of quarterbacks. I want some stability out of the position.
Alex, listen. It doesn't matter if Dante Moore plays or doesn't play if you get Quinn. I say that because you just signed a 5-star kid in this year's class.
You too.
So you could literally either have.
Don't you have 2?
Quinn,
David Keeley's kid, and who was the other one?
Well, he was a 4-star kid.
The one from Cal.
All right,
the guy from Cal.
So you already have that kid. So you already have a 5 and a 4-star, and again, Alex,
Quinn can come in.
You can say what you want.
Play 1 year. Dante hit the portal, and they got depth behind it.
There's no
you said
way.
That's not Oregon. Is that what you said?
No, I said it's not Oregon offering Quinn. Is what I'm saying. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
I'll tell you this. There's been literally no.
Thank you, Justin.
Like
if
no
Arch was in play, I would say let's go for it.
See that? Why?
Like
he's a less proven guy.
Because he again has eligibility left. If we're gonna get somebody, I don't want somebody for 1 year and gone. I want somebody.
Alex.
No, you guys see, you guys have your
If
philosophies.
you-
I have mine. I like consistency.
Listen, I get it. I'm excited we have Bryce because we're gonna have Bryce for at least 2 years, maybe
having
3.
Bo Nix
My
for 2
point is,
years
though,
was a blessing. We expected him to go pro after his first year. Yes or no? I did, at least. So he came back for that second year. That gave me more hope and confidence in the team having a second-year quarterback in the system. I don't want this constant fucking rotation.
But you didn't go that route. That's the whole point. So you had Bo Nix for an extra year to develop the kids behind it, and then what did you go out and do?
Well, that's because they all sucked. All of the backups were terrible.
Dante Moore could suck,
but he doesn't. We've seen him.
What have we seen?
True freshman at UCLA. He looked fantastic.
Lose the job at UCLA
as a true freshman, yes. And he needed a year to sit behind and learn. Now he's ready to go. We're arguing about the Ducks, which is my team.
I want this whole segment clip, Cottrell.
For sure.
Because when it comes out and he goes there and Alex comes on here, we're going to win back 90s. We got
I'm going to hit my boy up, Dan Lanning. Oh, so we're going to win Natty this year? Thank you, Bill, for saying that. Since next year, I'll be saying we're going to win back-to-back. Justin, hopefully you caught that. Cottrell, make sure you clip this section just like Bill said.
The whole thing's gonna be clipped, and that's gonna be the least problematic part of this clip for you come next year.
Look, I will not be happy with Quinn.
Who do you think you're a better team with next year? Be honest.
Dante Moore.
Oh my God. All right.
But again, that's the conversation for next year.
Hey, Alex,
anything else?
Alex, I just want Cottrell to call you crazy, then we can move on.
No. I won't call you crazy, but I mean, I think that's ridiculous. But regardless,
so what if Quinn Ewers is Ohio State? You want Quinn Ewers Ohio State?
He's not going to go there.
He's not going to Oregon.
The only reason why I say no is because we have a 5-star kid that I'm ready to play. Julian saying I'm ready to. I'm all aboard. I was aboard when he said that he wanted to go to Bama. I was like, hey, that kid's going to be special at Bama. He's going to take Jalen Milroe's job whenever that time comes. I've been saying that for years. Gene's also nuts for saying
Quinn
that.
Ewers is the best QB in college. That's wild. He's having the best QB on his own team.
But Alex, to your point though, you said the backup suck. I beg to differ.
He couldn't even win a starting job at Tulane.
I look
what's his name? I forgot who transferred out, but he couldn't even win a starting job there.
I look at your boy. I look at your boy Tyler. He won 8 games this year. And
but it's like the 4 schools to do it.
Yeah, you talk about Kyle McCord. I'm just saying, I see Tyler Shaw doing the same thing.
Here's the difference
at his school. And
Tyler
don't tell me the guy sucks.
If
he can win 8 games there, I mean, I think it's plausible to say he could probably win 10 or more at Oregon.
I just look at it this way: if he comes back and goes to Oregon, who is the best returning quarterback next year
for Oregon?
Quinn Ewers
for anybody. Exactly.
You might not want him, but it's play.
He's not going to want him. I'm not buying. You can say that.
I'm tired.
As soon as they start like 6-0 and they're murky people, it's going to be Quinn Ewers' love from here till the end of the season next year.
It won't be. I'll be like, you know what, we won, but like I wish Dante Moore was playing.
You're not.
I would say the whole time.
You could say it. You're not going to mean it though. Like you could say it exactly. You could say it for show to save face on the show, but deep down inside, like you're gonna have a little Quinn Ewers figurine that you probably put under your pillow and sleep with every night. Like I know how it's gonna go. It's fine.
You know how Alex changes his tune. I still got the receipts from Will Howard.
We'll be on. I'll hear just everything you said about Dylan Gabriel this year. Just insert Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is going to throw for 400 yards, throw 5 touchdown passes. Oregon's going to win by 40. It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same thing next year. It's fine. Let's move on.
Anyway, we're going on to coaching changes. Obviously, the main coaching change that really grabbed everybody's attention was Bill Belichick ending up at the University of North Carolina. He's got a little bit of a past there. His dad coached there on the staff. I believe it was in the 50s. I believe or so. There. Yeah, so he kind of grew up around that culture, that locker room, that North Carolina blue. He grew up around it. He did set up, obviously his son to be defensive coordinator and coach in the waiting.
Not defensive coordinator.
Not defensive coordinator.
Matt Patricia.
He just set up.
He signed Matt Patricia to be his defensive coordinator.
So then what is his son doing on the staff?
I have no clue what the son's doing on the staff, but I did just see that they just signed Matt Patricia.
Waiting, though.
I mean, that's fine, but I feel like you'd want the dude around the program.
I don't know if he's going to make him like, how a lot of schools do like the
linebacker coach. Yeah,
they do like the associate, like a assistant head coach. Like, they have the fancy titles now in college football. So, But I did see that he signed Matt Patricia as his DC, and then Freddie Kitchens was the first move that he made for the staff as well. So
he's gonna make a dent in that ACC. I told you. I said it on Wednesday when we talked
Malik
about
Murphy to UNC.
It's gonna go really, really well, or like in 2 years there's gonna be 20 kids left in the program. It's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be one or the other. Matt Patricia, listen, I think that again. I think Cottrell said this, very clearly on Wednesday, and I couldn't agree with him more. People are like, oh, like, is Bill going to recruit? Like, is he going to do that? Listen, the man's won 7 Super Bowls. He's however you slice it, arguably the best football coach to ever do it. Him going into a living room to sell kids to come to Chapel Hill, which is gorgeous, a school with a ton of resources. They've already announced they're upping their NIL fund next year by at least $5 million year one. And all his experience, it is not going to be hard for Bill Belichick to sell that program for kids to come there. It's not. Like, people are like, they got to touch with kids. You watch. Maybe not this year because he's going to have such a late start. I will bet any amount of money they have a top 10, top 15 class next year. And he can coach. And now you added another Super Bowl winning coach. You want to go to a school, again, Nike Jumpman school, get a ton of swag, have a bunch of fun, pretty much good weather all year. Oh, and my head coach is a 7-time Super Bowl winning head coach to get ready for the league. I don't know if you can name a better situation than North Carolina is going to have. It's going to be interesting. I think he's going to be successful. I do. I think it's going to take a year or two. I think all to turn any big program around does, especially coming this late into the cycle, because he's really not picking any of his kids that are coming in next year. So I think it's going to take a year or two. But if you're a North Carolina fan, I mean, I think you have to be excited. I don't know how you couldn't be.
I think if you look at it from like the just holistic viewpoint, I think it's more than obvious to say Bill Belichick is a better coach than Deion Sanders, correct? Like, I think that's a given, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so you see how, and again, going from 1 win to 4 wins like Deion did in his first year, I mean, that was big for Colorado. But then in that second year, they won 9 games, and he's got kids up for he's got a kid that's the favorite to win the Heisman this year. So I mean, I think that Deion he changed the approach to it where hitting the portal, like, he made that his thing there. I think 2 years you up the win total by 8 games. I'm not saying Bill's going to do that his first year at North Carolina, but this is a better team than what Colorado was. North Carolina won 6 games this year, and they didn't have Bill there. And I think by bringing in Bill and it being the ACC, which we know is a weaker conference with Clemson potentially losing Cade Klubnik and Miami obviously losing Cam Ward, like, I think the ACC could really be up for grabs this year and the following years there. And Bill's going to be able to get some guys out the portal, like names alone, guys that we wouldn't have never thought going to North Carolina. So I think Bill's going to have success this year. This his first year. He could potentially win 8-9 games. In the following year, we're going to be talking about UNC is potentially the favorite to win the ACC and go to the college football playoff. So I think this is a big move for them. And I'd be really curious to see who that first domino that's going to fall for North Carolina, because a lot of kids will start to follow after you get that happening. And I think it'd be even interesting too to see, obviously it hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it's going to happen, but Arch Manning being the name to look out for with Belichick's ties to Peyton and them having the show. And obviously he's been around the family there. What person would you trust more to, get your kid ready to go to the NFL than the greatest NFL coach of all time?
Yeah, he did all right with Tom Brady.
Yeah, and Drake May already showed that you can be a top recruit in the NFL from a school like North Carolina. So, I mean, without a coach like Bill Belichick. So I think that's also a good allure to it as well.
They definitely got the pedigree. I mean, Mitch Trubisky and being another one from North Carolina being a top 3 pick.
I always forget he went to North Carolina. I always forget about that.
Ohio kid.
He was picked over a lot of people that he should have been, but
true.
I mean, that's true. Is there any other coaching changes though that really grabbed your attention? Like UCF firing Gus Malzahn and hiring Scott Frost, or like Gus Malzahn ending up as the offensive coordinator at Florida State. Obviously, in the chat, we got Rich Rodriguez going back to West Virginia. I know, Cottrell, we had been talking earlier in the week or last week regarding the possibility of one of your coordinators taking that West Virginia job. I can't remember who it was that we were talking about. Thank you, Brian Hartline. But obviously, that job was snatched up pretty quickly. Is there any other of these moves that you've seen or caught up with that really are kind of taking you like back a little bit or surprise you?
I'll be honest. The Gus Malzahn getting fired from UCF was a little, especially with coming off the year they just had, and they had a decent recruiting class coming in. That was a little surprising to me. I don't know what people. I think it's surprising that A, he got fired, and then B, you're replacing him with a guy, when he had his first high-profile job, was an absolute disaster in Nebraska. So that is surprising to me. I don't know what the administrators think, UCF is going to be. I think they are a perennial 8, 9, 10 win.
He resigned from the program. I know. Resigned means you want to quit or do you want to get fired? You choose.
Yeah.
And then he goes to be an OC. Yeah.
Correct. So you can't sell me resigning because he doesn't have the time or blah, blah, blah. And like you said, 2 days later, he's the offensive coordinator of Florida State. So it's a head scratcher for me for UCF because, again, they're not Florida. They're not Florida State. Like they're never going to be a perennial 12-win team. If you have a guy, and again, Gus Malzahn's got a pretty good resume, He's
got a national championship.
It does. So, I mean, I think a guy that is that kind of that stature of a coach who, by all means, was extremely happy there, and he's going to keep turning out, 8, 9, 10 win seasons. I don't know what else you want there. And then you replace him with a guy who was an absolute disaster when he got his first real big time coaching job. Like disaster in Nebraska. Like they gave that kid every opportunity because he was a legend there as a player, and they couldn't get rid of him fast enough. The Rich Rod to West Virginia thing, I think is – listen, I'll say this. If you're trying to turn your program around and you want something different, I don't know how you would hire somebody like Rich Rod over Brian Hartline. You know what it's going to be. He's literally still running the same offense he ran 20 years ago. And I just don't – for me, it just doesn't move the needle. Like he left there, went to Michigan, sucked, went away for a while. He had some kind of controversy. I can't remember what it was. Ends up at Jacksonville State. Okay, so he won a couple games down there, and now you're bringing him back. For me, if I'm a West Virginia fan – I would have been way more excited if you're giving me the very young, up-and-coming coordinator guy that has proven he recruits his ass off, will do very well in that area. And I think it brings some youth and a lot of energy to a program. I would have took Brian Hartline. There's nothing to do with my dislike for Rich Rod or anything like that. Just I don't get the move from a university standpoint. I'll put it that way. I would have went in a different direction and really tried to inject some youth and energy and, really giving somebody a shot to come in and make their mark.
I'll say this. I mean, I think it's interesting that, two different programs decided to go back to the well in terms of coaches that they've already had and that had success there. Rich Rod was really, a couple field goals away from potentially playing in a national championship when he was at West Virginia the first time. And then you look at Scott Frost at UCF. I mean, they have one of those unclaimed national championships from, the year they went 12-0 and beat Georgia in the bowl game. So I think that this is I hope this isn't a trend. I'll say that. West Virginia, I don't know how much better you got with Rich Rodriguez. To your point, Bill, I think the Hartline move would have made a ton more sense just with how he can recruit that area and really recruit all over the country at this point. I'm glad that he didn't make that move, because I want him to be at Ohio State. Justin, I do see your comment down there as well. Hartline waiting on day to get fired. I'd be okay with that as well. I'd give him a shot, see what happens there. Don't necessarily need the high profile guy. I love the way he recruits and how he his outlook on the program. So I'd be cool with that too. But just in general here, Gus Malzahn going over to Florida State as an OC, I think that gets interesting because we know Gus loves the mobile quarterbacks. And they just signed, a guy that wasn't on the list because he had already signed in Thomas Castellanos. So yeah. I think that's going to be an interesting move for him as well. You figure Florida State, if they can get back to relevance and have some success there, you're going to be looking at Gus Malzahn next year as one of those guys that's being able to move on and get another head coaching job. So, I mean, I think it's just, puzzle pieces moving and connecting here and, things like that. So the landscape of college football is really changing. I would have never thought Bill Belichick got a head coaching job at the college ranks. And at this point, I would have never – how Rich Rod left West Virginia to go to Michigan, I get you have to make that move, but it felt like he was on the verge of building a powerhouse at West Virginia there. And then for him to go to Michigan, again, 100% understanding Michigan is one of the top jobs in the country. But then for them to just welcome him back with open arms there when they could have got younger, and really Rich Rod hasn't done anything to say, hey, you've earned the right to come back here. I think it's just
I think you're wrong there. I think West Virginia's most successful section of their football history was when Rich Rodriguez was their head coach. He went 60 and 26 in that time frame. West Virginia has severely underperformed in the last few years. I think they hired him back because they want to go back to that level of consistency that they were at when he was there. They like the success that he brought. So they're like, you know what? We've been failing recently. Why not go back to what works? So then they're going to see if Rich Rodriguez can still bring that same magic to West Virginia. I like the hiring move. I totally get what you're saying. I feel like the entire college football landscape is getting younger in that coaching, in the coaching landscape. And when there's a great coach like Hartline kind of waiting there for an opportunity, it seems like a no-brainer to go that route. But I also understand West Virginia playing it safe, going back to the guy that gave them a lot of success. So I can't really fault them too much for it.
I'll say this as a rebuttal to that. So when Rich Rod had success, things that made you successful back in 2007 aren't going to make you successful in 2024. The style of offenses were different. The style, like how you recruited, was different. And I think for me, like I'll ask you, just because this is something that could be something that happens to you here in the near future. If Dan Lanning wins a national championship within the next, I'd say 3 years here, and he ultimately decides that he wants to go to the NFL and make that move, would you be okay with hiring Chip Kelly back as your head coach?
Yes. If in a really weird way, yes, I absolutely would. I absolutely would. But I would prefer Will Stein. Just like in your situation, just like in West Virginia's situation, there's better options. But if you tell me that we're going to go back to the guy that brought us to the promised land to start with, I'm not going to be upset with that. He has a great mind for college coaching. He's got a great offensive scheme. I think Will Stein would be, yes, Mike Bellotti would be the coach I would choose if I could go back to anybody. Thank you, Justin. But no, I would not be upset. I think Will Stein would be the one I would prefer, but I would not be upset.
Kelly's been a disaster everywhere he's been since he left Oregon.
Yes, everywhere else.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, he's had and even at Ohio State, like I mean, I like him being the OC from an X's and O's standpoint. I didn't like the hire when they first got him, just because I don't think you want those kind of guys in your locker room. But from an X's and O's standpoint, I understand it. But I also think that, again, for me, I see why I see why Chip Kelly didn't have success at the NFL level, and it was because of his relationships with players and things like that. Now that NIL is brought into the picture here, I don't think you're going to see Chip Kelly have the same kind of success that he had before in college in any head coaching spot. I think he can get the players in. I think he can, he'll be able to recruit, but I don't think he'll be able to have sustained success with NIL as the way that it is now.
Can I say the difference between the Rich Rodriguez and the Chip Kelly, situation essentially is West Virginia has not been successful since Rich Rodriguez left. Oregon has seen nothing but success since then. So that's the difference between what you're asking right now. Obviously, West Virginia has not had any success. They're going to go back to someone that brought them success. Chip Kelly's kind of started this, historic run that the University of Oregon is on, as far as being successful as far as recruiting, win-loss column, all that good stuff. But we have been so successful since he left. for the majority. That's why Oregon wouldn't go back. If that makes sense.
How much success have you had since he left?
As far as top 10 recruiting classes, damn near every single year. Big Ten championship, first year in the Big Ten. Multiple Pac-10, Pac-12 championship game appearances, 2 national championship appearances. I mean, I don't know any other team, any other school would kill for those statistics in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years.
When you made, I forgot, who was your coach in 14 when you made
God, who was that? Was that Tell? No, that was Justin. Help me out.
My point would be that Oregon's going to have top 10 recruiting classes every year, no matter who the hell is the coach, because they're, especially now, Phil Knight is pumping so much money into that program and promises into the program and, deals into the program in general. So I think that's going to happen no matter who you have at coach there. As far as the success factor, I mean, I think Oregon's been pretty consistent. Of course, Chip Kelly brought that, but after that, I mean, it's really been the same. This year is different because you have the Big Ten championship. You have, true aspirations for a national championship. But I think that when you look at it, Oregon's going to be in the same spot. They've been in the same spot really for the last 20 years. They're always going to be a team that's in the mix for a national championship. Haven't been able to get it done. And for me, I would say, hey, Chip Kelly, when you were here, you didn't even get it done. To your point, Alex, is we brought in all these guys and they've been able, Cristobal, everybody's been able to do the same thing. So that's why I don't think Chip Kelly would make sense going back to Oregon. And for me, that's why I didn't think Rich Rod going back to West Virginia made a ton of sense. I think that was in the past. This is now. I don't like the Scott Frost going to UCF. I just think you need to bring something new because everything that worked in the past is not going to work in the future.
Any other coaching notes from you, Bill, before we kind of get onto the Heisman Trophy discussion?
No, I mean, I don't think we're going to see anything big from this point forward. I mean, coaching stuff usually gets done really quick because they got to find replacements and try to keep kids committed and everything else. I mean, I don't see a way that Day gets relieved at this point. I mean, I guess maybe if they somehow lose in the first round, I think it really turns up the heat. But with the AD already coming out saying he's staying, I don't think that changes. And I don't think there's anything else on the horizon big enough that it would really, I think, warrant a headline. So, no, I got nothing.
Perfect. All right, well, then let's get into the Heisman Trophy talk. Obviously, the finalists have been announced. Dylan Gabriel, Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, and Cam Ward. Obviously, as you can see, 5 through 10 on there. Before we get to the main 4, anybody on that list of, Cam, Scatterbo, down to Kyle McCord, anybody that really jumps off at you that kind of surprises you that they're on this list, or maybe how low they are on the list?
Bryson Daly being at 6 is insane.
Dude had a crazy year.
I mean, he did
29 touchdowns. I'm 11-1 record.
I understand it, but you can't tell me that Bryson Daly had a better season than Shador or Curtis Rourke at this point. Honestly, or Kyle McCord as well. I mean, I think him being at 6 is really a push there, and I get it. Colorado's going to split votes because they got Travis up there as well. But Shador being at 8, Bryson Daly being at 6, and Curtis Rourke being at 9, that makes absolute. If you put Bryson Daly on here and you have him at number 10, it's like the feel good kind of thing. I'm all right with it, but him being up at 6, I think is kind of crazy.
I think he's getting the love and the push because, I mean, I think, for instance, I think like Shador, I'm surprised Shador's at 8, and I'll say that, but I think Shador gets a lot of, I don't want to say pushback because he's throwing to Travis Hunter. And I think I don't necessarily agree with that train of thought of who's throwing to who and all that stuff. I do agree that it matters a little bit, but, I think Bryson Daly's getting that love because I think he's considered pretty much to be, kind of a one-man show type thing.
Pretty much is. If you look at the numbers. So. Honestly, Kyle McCord, I'm pretty surprised by that. I think that his 3 interception in the first half game would have not included him on this list. But again, I see him here, and I don't see any Ohio State players, so that says something, right, Cottrell?
I guess. I mean, Won
I
8
don't know who I
games.
don't see there is Will Howard. That's who I don't see on this list.
He won 8 games this year. I mean, good for him.
And made the Heisman list over Will Howard, who won 10.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Gabriel is a finalist, and he's got worse numbers than Shedeur. So
13-0.
Of
but
course,
winning matters in this award.
Winning does matter, but this is dumb. We're talking about individual player performances here. Looking at Travis Hunter is not in the college football playoff. Cam Ward is not in the college football playoff. Those guys 100% deserve to be up there. And if we're being honest, Cam Scatterable, you can make an argument, even without Arizona State winning, you can make an argument that he could have been a finalist for the award, just with how impactful he's been for his team there. And it's not even to just take away from Dylan Gabriel there, but I think you look at it from a number standpoint. Again, same kind of thing that I was mentioning with the Biletnikoff, with them getting that wrong there. And I don't want to just say blindly, stats matter. It's about who has the highest, yards per game and who has the most touchdowns and things like that. But I also think it's important to kind of use that, eye test there and say, if Shedeur was at Oregon, like what does that look like? If Travis was at another school, what does that look like? If Ashton Gency played for Michigan instead of Boise State, like would we be looking at these things a little bit differently there? So that's just kind of where I'm at with the whole thing.
I think it all has to matter. I think my problem is, and me and Cottrell discussed this before, I think the winning gets put into the formula too much sometimes, because I don't think
100% does.
Yeah. So, listen, I'm not saying this to be, controversial. I mean, there's 2 people on this list that have no shot of winning, and we know who they are. I think they both had great years. I don't think Dylan Gabriel gives a crap, if I'm being honest. He'd rather win a natty and go to the NFL. Cam Ward had a nice year. That's fine. I'm putting Shedeur Sanders in over both of them. It's tricky. You just never know what they're thinking. I mean, there's other years, I promise you, as crazy as this sounds, there's other years if there was 3 quarterbacks and they're all 11-1, Travis Hunter would struggle to make this list, to be a finalist anyway. And that's the way they do it. And I hate it. And you look at Genty in the year he had, literally the 3rd best, season of a running back ever in the history of college football. And he's on less carries and less touches than any of the guys ahead of him, and sat a lot in second halves. And you have a 2-way player who is, he's the best version of anything we've seen in that realm since Charles Woodson. And Charles Woodson won the Heisman. And I would argue that, Travis is miles ahead of what Charles was as an offensive weapon. I think Charles is the better defensive back at this point, but he's a generational player college wise. I don't know what any of these dudes end up doing in the NFL. But in regards to football, Travis Hunter is an absolute generational player, no matter how you slice it. But I really wish there was a dead set formula that everybody could look at and be like, okay, like this is what it's being judged upon. Because again, we've had other guys on this list before that are quarterbacks that their teams are 12-0, and you're like that dude shouldn't even be a finalist. And I'm not saying that this year, but it's all over the board for me sometimes, and there's no consistency, and that's my biggest gripe with it, as it always is. Some years we have 3 finalists, other years we have 5, sometimes we have 4. Like it's just there's just no consistency with it, and that's I would want more consistency and transparency if I had my way.
100% agreed. And I mean, I think this falls under the Stetson Bennett hate that I had. Not hate necessarily, but he had no business being a finalist going to New York over, not even just over other people, but I mean, he didn't have a Heisman caliber season. Not to say that Dylan Gabriel didn't. I think Dylan Gabriel deserves to be in this discussion for sure. But to your point, Bill, we're looking at this and we already know that there's 2 guys that have no business winning it. I don't think that if that's the case, then, why even invite? I'm all right with inviting. I agree with you. I would have had Shedeur over both of the quarterbacks there, but I don't like the format, I guess, is what you could say. And I've been consistent with that. Like I said, Stetson Bennett making it a couple of years ago didn't make a ton of sense to me. I get it. Georgia was undefeated. They ultimately won the national championship, but that's not what the Heisman Award is intended for.
Yeah, I know that Travis Hunter is essentially probably going to win this award, but I was really digging into his numbers, and his biggest games were against some of the worst pass defenses in this country. Oh my! What do you mean, oh brother? He had a huge game against Oklahoma State. They're ranked 131st in pass
Ashton
defense.
Jeanty plays in
Kansas,
the Mountain West. If that's what you're going to do.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, he does play in the Mountain West, but dude is absolutely. Was it his yards after contact is better than the second overall running back? Like his stats are so much. No, in college football. Like his numbers are so much better as an overall standpoint. It's not even funny. He said Travis Hunter's best games were against 50th, 100th, 84th, 75th, 102nd, and 131st ranked pass defenses. He didn't even have he isn't even the best receiver, arguably, on his own team. He just got the most targets and the most catches. He was fourth on his team in average yards per catch. He just had the most targets. And again, in these games, when he was playing the worst of the defenses, he was getting 11, 12, 13 catches. Obviously, that's going to look great. But against these defenses, any wide receiver could have done that. Actually, every wide receiver against these teams was doing that. So that's why I'm not jumping on the Travis Hunter train. He is special. He is an amazing player. I just don't think he's this year's Heisman. And I know that there's a lot of people who agree with me on this fact. Ashton Jeanty has done everything he needs to. He's got his team in the college football playoff. He's got a conference championship against the number 15 run defense in the country. He had almost 200 yards and almost beat University of Oregon single-handedly. UNLV lined basically 11 guys up in the box in that conference championship game, and he's still, with 22 seconds left in the half, they knew exactly what they were going to do. Hand the ball to Jeanty. Dude still ran off a 65-yard touchdown. Like, the dude is absolutely insane, and it's crazy that people are so dead set on Travis Hunter being the Heisman Trophy winner this year, because I don't think it's that cut and dry.
For me, I'll say this. I think if Travis Hunter played at, let's say, Alabama, for example.
I hate this conversation because it's not what it is.
And did not have Deion Sanders as his coach, a lot of the outrage that you see would not be happening.
He wouldn't be on this list if he went to Alabama and Sanders wasn't his coach. It's the hype that's constantly on that Colorado.
It's not the hype though. Look at the numbers. I'm
not saying he doesn't deserve it.
To
the
Bill's
hype machine behind this is because of Deion, though.
100%. You're right, Bill. But to your point, though, about Charles Woodson, if you look at it from a number standpoint, his numbers are better than what Charles Woodson's was when he won the Heisman.
Hold on. So here we go. This confirms exactly what I said. Punt returner, kick returner, Hunter doesn't do it. Charles Woodson had 37 returns, almost 400 yards. The big touchdown against Ohio State, obviously. Receiving, they're not even close. Their senior year, Woodson had 11 receptions for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. Travis has a gazillion yards and receptions and touchdowns. As rushers, believe it or not, their numbers are almost identical. Travis had 2 rushes for 5 yards, 1 touchdown. Charles had 3 carries for 15 and 1 touchdown. Defensively, Charles is definitively better. 4 interceptions.
Double the PBUs.
He's got 7 interceptions. They stopped throwing the ball at him, dude, and he's still got more tackles. So I mean, again,
when a cornerback tackles, that's not a number that should be important for cornerbacks.
Honestly,
how should it not be?
You can't pick and choose.
So why do you have a lot of
right? Snaps isn't even a stat.
No one talked about. I didn't bring up anything about.
No, but you're just saying that like tackling shouldn't be counted for cornerbacks. Okay,
no, I'm not saying it shouldn't be counted. But what I'm saying, how do you tackle people? That means they catch the ball on you and then you make the tackle, or you're going and making tackle. You're tackling other players. Corners, you should not be looking at corners about what their numbers are tackling. When we talk about the top corners in the NFL, no one gives a damn about what their numbers look like.
Would you rather more pass breakups or interceptions?
Interceptions, for sure.
All right, he's almost got double interceptions.
Double.
So there. Again, I'm not taking away from Shedeur at all, or from Travis Hunter at all. Sorry. I'm not even really mad that he's going to win. But I think it's the fact that there is credence, not that it's I'm not giving him hate, because I'm not hating on him at all, actually, because of the Deion thing. The hype train that started because of Dion is a part of this, though. To not acknowledge it, I think is a little short-sighted. My biggest issue with this is not that Travis is going to win. Again, I've said it already. He's a generational player. He's the best person to do this since Charles Woodson, and Charles Woodson won the Heisman over Peyton Manning. I have no issue with it. It's that we're discounting what Genty did, though. And that is, he's the third best. If you go by the numbers, and if you break it down by yards per carry and stuff like that, he's even better than Barry in certain things. Like statistically, he's the third best running back to ever play college football. And the fact that we're just like, nah, like Travis is splashy, he's this, he's that, we're just going to give him the award. That is the conversation that bothers me. Not that Travis is going to win. It's just the absolute, just like, I don't want to say disgust, but it's just the dismissing of Genty. That's my issue with it. Again,
which is fine. Like I'm 100% with you. I think it should be a preference thing. It should be about who do you think has earned it more. But to do that, you don't need to put the other one down. Like for me, I'm not going to say, Ashton Genty just had these numbers in the Mountain West. But if you're going to argue that Travis Hunter had his best, you said.
That's what you told me was.
But
that is the second I said anything.
But that's because you bring up the point of who Travis Hunter has faced. You can't talk about who these guys. They can only play who's in front of them. Like you can't talk about them having their best performances in these certain games when that's who they play. Like that's ultimately what's going to happen. So for me, my argument for Travis Hunter, it's never going to be an argument against Ashton Genty. Same way, if it was my argument for Ashton Genty, it wouldn't be against Travis. It would say, hey, this is what I value more, and this is what I think is more important. So I think that we don't have to bring, who they play. We don't have to bring the other one down because what they're both doing is honestly historical here. For me, I look at it like this. You look at the numbers and everything like that, and the people that say Ashton don't deserve it, I think they're crazy. To people that say Travis Hunter doesn't deserve it, I think they're crazy. I think any year, either of these guys could be a Heisman Trophy winner, and I think either of them would be deservedly so. I have my arguments why I think Travis should be that guy this year, and to me, I look at it, you guys are going to be like, oh, that's crazy. Like, why would you use those names? I'm looking at it from a number standpoint. And from strictly numbers, if it was Charles Woodson versus Melvin Gordon, who do you have winning the Heisman? Both of their best seasons as is. Who do you have winning the Heisman? And in terms of impact and all that, for me, I'd still go Charles Woodson, just because of exactly what he did in the full picture there.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to agree to disagree. We're going to find out tonight, one way or the other, who's going to win. Obviously, Travis Hunter is the betting favorite. I get my last thing I want to say is, for me, Heisman's about consistency. And there was a stretch in the season here where Travis Hunter was not the most consistent at receiver. Kansas State, 26 receiving yards. Arizona, 17 receiving yards. Utah, 55 receiving yards. I'm not giving a Heisman to a guy who's a two-way stud who has games like that, 3 games like that. 1 game I can forgive, but 3 games, I don't know if I can. And Ashton Genty didn't have one misstep game all year long. He was consistent the entire season, obliterating everybody. So for me, consistency wins on this one.
But
no, Justin, Gabriel's not winning.
The thing is, though, with that, Alex, though, is that's not the entire picture with Travis, though. Like, you can talk about those games, but he also has defensive side as well.
Perfect. But he had 2 interceptions in 1 game. So out of the other 11 games, he had 2 interceptions across those games. I'm not impressed.
I have to verify.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
He had 2 interceptions against who was it? Was it Colorado State?
Is interceptions the only way you can be a good corner?
I didn't get into Hunter's yet.
Let's talk about how many yards he gave up. Like, if we want to go numbers like that, like, let's just talk about how many yards he gave up.
I'm going to look his up in a second, but to get back to the Woodson thing, Woodson his senior year gave up 11 completions.
There you go.
They just didn't throw the ball at him.
They had to throw the ball at him. He had 7 interceptions.
Yeah, okay, so they threw the ball 18 times.
Yeah, he caught 7 of them, and they were just like, we're not doing this anymore. He has 16 interceptions for his career. I'll look up Travis's. The only reason I know his. I saw this earlier. I don't know what his completion and all that stuff. I know his thrown at percentage was like, they said it was like top 10 ever. So I mean, he's in that conversation.
My thing is, if you look at the numbers, and again, not even just PFF wise, but just in general, Travis Hunter was. This is just playing it safe here. Travis Hunter was a top 3 cornerback in all the country. I think he was the best with Will Johnson not playing the back half of the year. And then you look at on the offensive side, he was a top 5 receiver any way you slice in all of college football this year.
Are we looking for like? I guess my question for Alex though on this is like what is your gripe with him? Unless I find something here where it's egregious, which I don't think it's going to be. Like what do you think the issue with him is defensively?
What do you mean? Like what's my issue with him?
He said he only had 4 interceptions and 2 of them happened in one game.
Right, so I'm saying that like his numbers are kind of ballooned by this. His interception numbers are ballooned by one particular game. But I mean, I honestly, Bill's looking up the numbers as far as targeting goes.
Who cares?
It does. It matters. Dude,
ballooned
in this
by one game. Who
context
cares?
Matters. Okay, well, Ashton Jeanty didn't need one game to balloon his stuff. He did it every single week in, week out. Like the fact that like people are arguing that like Dylan Gabriel shouldn't be even in the Heisman Trophy finalist as a 13-0 quarterback with a 13-0 team, like that's ridiculous too. But there's a bunch of arguments here that Deion Sanders set up
13-0
week 0
is not an individual award number.
No, it's not. But that's why he's there, because winning matters. Winning matters.
Of course it matters.
What is it? Deion Sanders at the beginning of the year set this all in motion the second he had a press conference with Shador on one side and Travis on the other and said, both these boys deserve a Heisman Trophy. Neither of them are going to get it because I'm the coach. He literally started his manipulation week 0. Like that is textbook manipulating. Oh, they're not going to win because I'm the coach. Don't punish them because of me. Like he started manipulating the entire process week 0. Like I don't know how anybody doesn't see this. But whatever. We
manipulate.
Yes.
I don't get when you finish top 3 in total yardage as a receiver.
But he did he?
Or what was
he
it?
Finished
top
6th.
5?
He finished 6th. Not even top 5.
6th. Okay, 6th at receiver, top 3 in touchdowns for sure. So you finished 6th in yards, 3rd in at least top 3 in touchdowns. You finished 2nd in touchdowns. And then on the defensive side, you were the best corner in college football.
Yeah, and 3 of those touchdowns came in the last week against the 123rd ranked defense. They were literally he should guess what Ashton Jeanty would have been on the sideline letting his backup play at that point.
Ashton Jeanty put up 200 plus yards against like 500 plus ranked defenses. Who cares?
And
the numbers matter. Quarter. You can only put up numbers against who you play.
Stat padding matters too. And that's what that is.
Of course Of course it matters, of course, but you can't talk about just numbers when Jeanty's getting 30 plus carries against teams that aren't even bowl eligible. A lot of teams that aren't bowl eligible. Like I don't care about what you did against who in terms if you're consistently doing it and you're the best at it. I don't care. What would Cam Scatterbo look like if he was in Ashton Jeanty's offense right now? Would he have a 2,000-yard season with 30 plus carries a game?
Maybe.
Exactly. So let's not act like these individual performances don't matter.
All right. So 19 completions given up, 2 touchdowns, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The entire season giving up 2 touchdowns. That's
on 19 throws. That's 10%. Is this 10%?
No
touchdowns.
No.
Negative.
No. Negative.
Negative ghostwriter.
That's not what I said.
Is that what you said? He got thrown out 19 times?
No, he gave up 19 completions out of those
the entire season.
Out of those 19, 2 were touchdowns, under 200 yards. Obviously the 4 picks. And his PFF grade, no matter how you slice it, is in the 90s for pretty much across the board. So
he gives up less than 2 touchdowns a game, and less than 2 receptions per game. Look at 200 numbers. They had 12 games so far this year. So he gives up 16 yards a game, less than two completions, and he was graded as the best corner in the country. I don't know.
I just wish Will would stayed healthy, but it would have been. I'd still take Will defensively over him, but Obviously, Will.
I would too. I would too.
Will,
he didn't play.
Yeah. So
All right.
It's elite and it's all time across the board. You can't really argue it.
It's all who?
It's elite. It's elite. It's all time. He's not like there's a couple of things that they're posting here. Like Woodson's like no lower than like fourth in all of them, but Travis is literally in the top 10 in all the same categories all time for a college career. So that's the company he's in.
Well, that's the Heisman Trophy. I think we spent a lot of time on the Heisman, and we got a lot of stuff to get on, including our draft. So where are we going next?
We got draft and 2 previews. We're all right here. But we're going to do previews first. Army, Navy.
We can't preview Indiana, Notre Dame until after the draft because 2 of us are going to pick Indiana and Notre Dame.
For sure.
Perfect. All right. Army versus Navy, dude. I like the jerseys this year. They're simple. They're not over the top. I like them.
I like Army's more than Navy's. I think Navy's helmets are sweet though.
Yeah, I like that. I like the old like the whiteout look. I'm a huge fan of the whiteout look. Obviously, the old blacks are sick. What is it? The Navy is honoring. Was it who are they honoring with this Navy?
The Jolly Rogers this year. That's why I love it. Jolly Rogers, which is a division of the F-14 squadron back from the 80s. It was kind of one of the more strike force squadrons they used for a lot of missions and bombing. So obviously being a huge jet nerd from when I was young and obviously being a big Top Gun fan, I'm all about the Navy uniforms this year. I think Armies are sick. I just wish they would have done something else more with the helmets.
Agreed.
To do all that and then just put a little shamrock. I understand what it signifies. I get it. I love it.
They got the snowflakes on there too. They got the white powder on there to signify the snow. Like there's a lot more detail on those helmets, and you can see with the plan. Like, you can see the white speckled on the jerseys. Like
Navy's killing them with the helmet though.
No, you're right. You're right. I do like the I do like the subtlety though of like the white speckles on the shoulder pads and the helmet. Like that is attention to detail.
I just love that. Both schools give homage to some part of their makeup every year. Nike and Under Armour obviously work very closely with these schools in making them. It's great. And I mean, honestly, if you're a fan of this game, which you should be, if you've never been to one, I said this on Wednesday. If you've never been to one, it should be on your bucket list as a sports fan. You can go. It's a completely easy game to watch, being unbiased, and it's just an experience you should go through. If you're a college football fan, there is no excuse to not go to one of these games. It is different. It's special. There's a reason it's on its own weekend, and it will be satisfying for you to go no matter what. Just to watch the pageantry and the camaraderie of it all it's different. It's special. There's nothing like it. And this year being said, I mean, this is one of the better matchups we've had in the last, I'd say at least decade, 15 years, with both these schools being very good. We were talking week 8 and they were both still undefeated. So, Army's coming in as a 6.5-point favorite. But Navy's very good this year, and they're actually throwing the ball more than they ever have, which is interesting for this matchup if you ever watched it. And then Army 11-1, can add has a conference championship on the belt, can beat a really good Navy team today, and they're going to be 12-1, and they're just going to sit there and watch, and they'll probably go to a mid-tier bowl game, which stinks. But very good football game today. It's down here in, not Annapolis, obviously, but it's in D.C., which isn't too far. Playing shitty FedEx Field, though. I just wish they would put it somewhere else. But thoughts on the game, what you guys expect? We already talked about Army's quarterback earlier. How do you guys see it playing out? And, what are our official picks going to be here today?
Yeah, I mean, the Army-Navy game, obviously, it's been heavily talked about all year. We've mentioned it multiple times throughout the season. Obviously, 11-1 for Army, 9-3 for Navy. Both of them were ranked at the same point this season. Both of them ultimately sputtered up against Notre Dame, which was unfortunately expected. But these two teams have absolutely had put together amazing seasons. Let me see. Shoot, our Army is even out recruiting UAB right now for commits, which is absolutely insane. But Navy's dropped has dropped 3 of their last 5. Bryson Daly is a lot to handle. Army's 6.5-point favorites. Normally, obviously, you want to go with the under, but today I think the best bet today is that Army covering that spread at 6.5. I think Army's offense is just absolutely on another level this year. The way that they were able to manhandle and take care of business against Tulane in the conference championship game, I think that carries over, and I think they take care of business against Navy today. Like I said, Navy has had a fantastic season, but I think Army is head and shoulders above Navy right now.
Agreed. I also have Army winning this football game here, and I don't think it's necessarily close here. I think to Bill's point, Navy has had a really good run this year, being an 8-3 football team. But I just look at it. I look at it like this. You look at a team like Tulane, and I saw what Tulane looked like against Navy, and then I see what Army was able to do to them. And just fully dismantling them. And so I think for me, that just goes to show me that this Army team is gonna put it to Navy today. I think it'll be a really competitive game. You'll see defenses showing out here and there, but ultimately for me, I said it on Wednesday, I said it again today, I think the Army offense is just going to be too much, like how Alex said. Bryson Daly, as much as I don't think that he should have been, as high as he was in the Heisman Talks, phenomenal year. He's going to be really hard to stop today. And, I just don't see that Navy offense putting up a ton against that Army defense. So I like the under in this one, but I also like Army to cover. I think this is going to be a pretty decisive game.
So by nature, I don't know why. I said a little bit like growing up, I was always kind of a fighter jet guy. So I've always found myself just naturally rooting for Navy in this. And that really won't change today, but in regards to winning the game, I think Army's going to win. I took Army minus 6.5. I think this game goes over though. Like I said, I think it's more of a cleaner game, but I think both teams are way more offensive than usual this year, which isn't a bad thing. But, I think with Navy trying to throw the ball more and being more successful than they usually are, I think the scoring is going to be a little bit up today. Weather's not bad down here. It should be dry. It's going to be cold, but it's going to be good football weather. I think the scoring's up. I think it goes over. And like I said, I like Army minus 6.5. I just think they're a little bit of a buzzsaw this year, and that offense just really hasn't been stopped by anybody other than Notre Dame, and they didn't really play well in that game. So I like Army kind of big today.
Either way, I think both the quarterbacks are going to show out. Horvath and Daly, those dudes are both rock stars at quarterback as far as running the ball. They don't turn the ball over a lot, so I think you're right. I think this will be a nice, clean game. But go Army!
I'm always rooting for the underdog here, so I'm rooting for Navy, but I think
the true underdog is the over. I think that's the true underdog here.
I mean,
that's who Bill's
not lying.
Listen, this one specifically. I mean, obviously, again, I made my pick, but this one's especially tough this year because of who Navy is honoring. Like, this is literally in my wheelhouse. Like, if there was ever a year where I'd buy some gear, and if I could get my hands on one of these helmets, I would buy one. But I just think Army's better. It hurts my soul to say that, but they're just a better football team this year. But there's always upsets in this series, so.
Rex, we just saw an upset happen 2 weeks ago that we weren't expecting. So,
yeah,
and you just never know what happens in these rivalries.
Nope.
Here's a crazy question for you. Let's just say Army had beaten Notre Dame, gotten into right, of course, and then Boise State had also won their conference championship with a 1 point or with a 1 possession loss to Oregon. Do you think this Army-Navy game being played after the college football playoff would be rethought? If Army were to lose in that situation happened, Army lost to Navy, for example, do you think that they would change the order? If you get what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
I know what you're saying too. I think you would start to consider, you don't consider moving this game. I think you keep this game on its own kind of path there. But I do think I don't know how you do it. I don't even know if you can do it, but maybe the committee wouldn't make their decision until tonight, like 8 p.m. tonight is when the ranking stuff would go out. but it
I'll
was
tell you
tough for the
this.
team sitting because they wouldn't know who they can game plan for the following week. So it's
I
like
don't
a
think
catch-22.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think they would count this game. I think if you finish your season and Army was 12-0 and a conference champion, I think they would have seeded them accordingly. And I think the Army Navy game gets played, and it gets played because it gets played the state every year, and they don't change it. I don't think the committee would change the seeding if they lost. I think it would be what it would be. If anybody's at a disadvantage, it would be Army because they wouldn't get their week off. But There's no way these kids don't play this game, though. There's none.
Oh yeah, for sure they play. Yeah, for sure.
So it's one of those things like if Navy was 0-9 and beat Army, that season's a success. Like this is, there's a catch line on this. Like this game just means more, and it's obviously rooted in because of what it is. But at the same time, it's true. Like we're 7-5, and that for all intents and purposes, that's a really bad year for us. And nobody cares. Nobody cares this year. And a lot of that has to do with what happened last year. But the fact that we beat Ohio State 2 weeks ago, everybody in Ann Arbor is smiling. Like nobody, we're ready for next year and bringing all these kids in and what's going to happen. This game has the same type mentality and same type, effect on results. If you win this game, you had a good year. Doesn't matter what happened anywhere else. So it's going to be interesting today. Like I said, I think it's going to be a good game, but that is an interesting, thing that I guess could come up down the road. I mean, if Army or Navy, one of these teams makes a run like that, because you are giving up your bye week. You are giving up your bye week to get healthy and get ready for a college football playoff game. But
you're going to get banged up in that game.
Yep. So I mean, I just don't see any way they would move this game though. It would be so wild for me if they agreed to move this game till later. And on top of everything else, like you have to remember with the way the kids graduate these academies, it's not like you could just move it to January because some of these kids graduate and then, have to go right into service. Like you're not even playing with the same team. And then like if you're Navy here, so your Navy's like, all right, so you're telling me we have to practice again for the next month. Like, again, like these kids have finals, like some of these kids are going to get put into service between now and then. Like, how do we do it? And it could be vice versa for Army as well. So, I don't see any situation where it would get moved. I guess you could say worst case scenario, Army would just be like, hey, like if it was this year, Army would be like, we just can't play it. You know what I mean? Like, but I could never see a coach coming out and be like, hey, like we talked to all the kids and they voted to, not play the game. Like, I don't see any way that even happens. So, I think it's the unique nature of this rivalry. It has its own weekend, and with the landscape of college football changing around it, I don't think they ever thought
we could potentially be here.
Yeah, that we could potentially be here, and we are. I mean, if Army was, I don't want to say dumb, but if Army would just, be like, you know what, we're just not playing Notre Dame anymore.
Right.
Like,
they didn't play Notre Dame this year and filled it with somebody else. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, or is Army going to get Florida Stated every year? Because I don't think so. I mean, you'd have to put them in eventually. So
I think the one way you can potentially fix it, and a lot of people won't like this, and I personally won't like it either because it's against tradition. But if you want them to still play, and down the line it's a situation where Army is going to the college football playoff or Navy is going to the college football playoff, you have them be the only game in town on week 0. That would alleviate all the issues that you have here. It's still the only show. Of course, the tradition of it having its own weekend at the end of the season, it matters. But I think that would be the way where you can keep that tradition and not have it interfere with the college football playoff. Again, I don't think we're ever going to get to that point, at least for the immediate future here, until one of these teams are a serious contender to make the college football playoff. I mean, even this year, you talk about them beating Notre Dame, and I do think they would have got in if that was the case there. But even then, I mean, the highest they were ranked this season was like, in that 20 to 22 range. So we didn't even fully get over that hump there. But I think if we do, then I think you can have discussions and, I don't want to say get it out the way, but I think week 0 would be the time frame to move it to. have it be the only game on that week, and then the college football season really kicks off week 1.
I mean,
There we go.
listen, it's not. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's. I think people would hate it, but at the same time, I think it would protect it in that it would get played every year.
Yeah.
Because again, I would say push comes to shove. At some point, one of these two teams will probably make that miracle run, and it will be an issue. Like, we will probably address this at some point on the show in the future.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it today. Like I said, being down here is kind of cool because I think everybody, we're going out in a little bit, but it's even, with the game not being here in Annapolis, like there's, even looking outside, like walking around, like there's Navy fans everywhere. I'm assuming all the restaurants and the bars are going to be packed. So it's going to be kind of cool to experience one down here later. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think we got to get into this draft that we're going to do here, which is going to be interesting.
All right, so I'm going to throw up our records here. Alex, if you kind of just want to, it was your idea here, which, we absolutely love. So I'll throw up the records here because this is how we determined our order. But
Jeez.
Alex, go ahead. Let the people know what we're doing.
In general, we all suck. We need to be better next year.
Hey, we all tied, though, and that's I will take that as a win.
Crazy part is including Gene. Gene also went 21-24 college football picks this year.
Which is really
Did
funny.
he really? That is pretty funny. What we're doing today, obviously, there is 4 quadrants of the college football playoff. We don't happen to have a slide for. Here we go. Perfect.
I don't have the quadrants, but we
this is perfect. This is perfect. As you can see, there are 4 obvious sections: Clemson, Texas, Arizona State as one, Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon as the other, and then you can kind of follow that logic down the rest of the way.
Yep.
So each of what we're going to do is we're each going to draft 4 teams in a snake draft order, and we can each take one team from each quadrant, as there's 3 teams in each quadrant. What we're going to do is we're going to essentially every week when those teams face off, let's say I pick Oregon, Cottrell picks Ohio State, they face off. I'm going to argue why Oregon is the team that's going to win. Cottrell's going to argue why Ohio State's going to win. Bill is going to then give his opinion at the end as far as what he thinks, who he leans towards. And then obviously if your team wins, that goes against your record. Oregon 1-0, 2-0, so on and so forth. Does that
Are we going to keep points for this though?
They don't necessarily have to keep points, but we definitely will keep track of who's doing what.
Well, that's what I think
we got to keep track.
If we do points, I just think it's more fun.
Yeah,
sure. Whatever first round pick you win, you get a point. Quarterfinal picks, you get 2 points.
It's semifinals,
semis 3. And if you get the
95,
championship,
let's say 5.
Yeah.
Screw 4. Go 5. Screw 4.
If you you get 4 if you get there, and if you win, you get 5.
But you get 3 points for winning the
semifinal. 3 for winning the semi, so that's the same thing.
If you win the semi,
you get to the national. So then
are you saying you get 4 for winning the semis? Are we going 1, 2, 4, 5? Screw 3, or are we going 1, 2, 3? Screw 4 and go 5?
I said we are.
All right, so we'll go. All right, no, so we'll go. we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So
no, we're screwing 4. 4 is not an option here.
Why?
We're going 1, 2, 3, 5, or 1, 2, 3.
You want the bonus point for winning national championship?
Absolutely, you have to get an extra point for winning the national.
Absolutely.
1, 2, 3, 5.
Okay, so that's how it works, and then we'll keep track of it at the end. But what was the order? We're going by Superdog points.
Yeah, so since we all tied, we're going to go by Superdog points, and Bill, he led the way there, so he's going to go first. I'm going to go second. Alex is going to round it out. Like he said, it is a snake, and so we are going to wrap it around.
All right, so again, this isn't necessarily who I think wins the national championship or anything like that. This is also, we're trying to pick teams that we think go the furthest. I've made no bones about it. I don't think Boise State's a layup. I don't think SMU's a layup, but I think Penn State has the easiest path to get me to that semifinal round. So I'm going to take Penn State Nittany Lions with my first pick.
Okay. That's a
very off the board.
Very interesting.
Oh, and before Cottrell picks, just so everyone knows, Bill here picked Penn State. Let's say Cottrell picks Boise State. I would automatically get SMU, as we can only get one team quadrant. So just want to throw that out there before we got to that point.
Absolutely. So for me, Bill, you actually, I love that you picked Penn State there, because I was thinking very strategically here. I know who Alex's first pick is going to be, and it's a snake format. So I'm going to get them before you get them. So I'm going to roll with Texas here as my first pick in the first quadrant there.
That was a mistake.
Because I think they're going to go the farthest of that region up there. I think Texas is the one that makes the most sense there. So I will take Texas first, knowing that I'm going to get my team in the second.
Part of me really wants me to take Ohio State now, just to really mess with stuff.
Alex, we know you. Come on.
I know that, but the problem is if I take Oregon, I lose out on a point in the first round. You got to take that into account. But then again, I'll gain 2 for the national championship. You're right. I'm taking Oregon my first overall pick. Number 1 team off the board. Oregon, got to go with my boys. I wish I could pick Ohio State
the most
too.
Surprising pick of the first round.
I wish I could take Ohio State also, but I'm not going to.
Because you can't.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. Because I can't. But I will, however, take who I think is going to be the strongest seed out of the bottom portion. So I'm going to take Notre Dame. That's my second overall pick.
Excellent. This board is falling exactly how I want it to right now. With the second pick, I have to take Ohio State. I think they're going to be my team that gets me the farthest there. So I'm rolling with the Buckeyes.
So Bill, you automatically get Tennessee in that section.
Yep. So I now have Penn State, Tennessee. It's a matter if I want to. Actually, no. I mean, I pretty much control what I want to do here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to go 2 in a row. So it's a matter. There's no way in hell I can take Indiana. There's just none.
So you got to take Georgia then. Or else
I will go.
Cottrell could stick you.
He could. And then me having to root for Indiana would just drive my brain insane for the next 30 weeks. I will take Georgia at the bottom.
Perfect. So that gives Cottrell Indiana. So that closes out that.
This closes out that.
Which is what I would have taken anyway.
I have Tennessee. Now it's a matter if I want to take Clemson or Arizona State. I am going to take Arizona State there.
Okay. So that leaves me with Clemson. And then Cottrell, we're down to SMU and Boise State. Whoever you don't choose, I get stuck with for my final pick, and we're all good to go.
I am going to take Boise State.
Cool. I've been on SMU's coattails all year, so I will happily go down with the ship on that SMU train. So I will happily take Notre Dame, SMU, Oregon, Clemson. Bro, that's the final 4 right there.
So I got Georgia, Penn State, Tennessee, and Arizona State.
Texas,
I mean,
State,
I think
Boise State, Indiana.
I mean, listen, I like the fact that, like, barring anything wild, 3 of my 4 teams will be in the quarterfinals. So I'll throw Tennessee overboard now. That's fine. But the rest of it, I feel like the quarterfinals, I'm good.
I'm with it.
I have 2 teams there already, and Penn State should get there. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. I think all 4 of my teams make the quarterfinals. So
who do you have?
That works out for me. Texas, Ohio State, Boise State, Indiana.
Indiana's not making it past Notre Dame.
Indiana's
down. Guess what?
28 and a half.
Guess what? Oh no, we're not getting to it. I got to get the slide up.
No, that was I like the teams they ended up with. I was worried I was gonna get stuck with Arizona State. I wasn't gonna be unhappy with it, but I also didn't want Arizona State if I had my choice.
And you told me that Texas was a mistake.
And Justin, that is exactly what we're doing. We are going to be defending these teams, or we're going to be saying why our team is going to win when the matchups happen. And the first matchup is Notre Dame versus Indiana.
Yeah, and I'll work on getting the graphic up for that. But
You're
I mean,
good, buddy.
I will say for these matchups here, is there anyone? Obviously, Bill already kind of let it be known that Tennessee is the one that he would throw overboard. Alex, for you, do you have one where you're like, I don't think we're gonna go for it, but I'm still gonna argue for you?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's SMU. Because I just think that with what they showed against Clemson, I think Penn State is going to be able to kind of control that line of scrimmage a little bit. But I'm a fan. So I'm all in on the Mustangs. But if I could throw anybody over the board, it'd probably be SMU.
Fair enough. I think for me, it's obviously got to be Indiana. Although I am pretty confident in the Hoosiers there to take care of business. I've been aboard that Indiana train all season. I've been showing them their respect there, and it's actually funny that I get stuck with the teams that essentially I've been arguing Bill against, all season there. I've been telling them about Texas, like you have to put Indiana and Texas in the same boat. Well, guess what? They're in my boat. All right, we're all together. We got everybody
you better
together.
have a good pump system in that boat, brother.
Hey, we got Bill.
A lot of people
good old flat fashion Flex Seal.
Flex Seal. Flex it and forget it, baby.
And good old fashioned Flex Seal to make sure we get it rolling. But I mean, what better way to get right into it?
You know what? I like that you say that. Not gonna lie, like I'm more excited about this game starting to get the college football playoff than I was before. I wouldn't want Penn State and SMU to be on a Friday night, and I definitely don't think you could waste Ohio State, Tennessee, or I guess you could Clemson, Texas. I really wouldn't care, but I think this game is fitting to start the playoff. I really do. South Bend and Bloomington only, a couple hours apart. I'll say this. I mean, you guys have to defend this, so I'll go through my stuff first, and then you guys can have at it here. I don't think Notre Dame's great. I've said that all year. I think they're a little bit of, I said at the very beginning there was 3 teams that were fool's gold. And I was right on 2 of the 3 of them. Penn State was being the outlier there that ended up being a really good football team. But Indiana has quickly taken their place. I've watched them play enough. I know what they are. I know what they're not. I don't think they have what it takes to go into South Bend at night, Notre Dame Stadium, and beat that Notre Dame team. Notre Dame team is playing very well. As much as crap as I give them, they have played well down the stretch. Two-headed monster running attack. I think they're going to run the ball down Indiana's throat, which is exactly what Michigan and Indiana did. And then they're going to throw the ball off that with Ryan Leonard. I think that defense is going to make Work beat them over the top, which I don't think he can do. And I think Indiana's defense is going to be on the field for way too long. I like Notre Dame big here by double digits. I made no bones about it. I think Indiana is a good football team. I don't think they're elite. I don't think they should be in the playoff. This is the 3rd good team they're going to play this year, and I think you're going to get the same kind of result you got in the first 2. I like Kurt as a coach. I do. I make no bones about that either. I think he's great for that program. He's going to give them stability. He's not going to use Indiana as a stepping stone. I love it that Indiana is going to be another competitive Big Ten football team year in and year out, which they haven't been for decades. They've been a stepping stone. They're a 2 or 3 win team every year. They're not going to be that anymore. So as a whole, I love that for the Big Ten. I'm just telling you, I think they're overmatched here. I think Notre Dame has too much talent. I think they're going to be able to play the game they want to play it, especially at home, 85,000 fans. I like Notre Dame big.
Alex?
All right. Look, I'm going to say this. Riley Leonard is the best Notre Dame quarterback that they've had since Sam Hartman. All right. That's all I'm saying since last year. No, but look, if you look at Indiana's schedule, okay, they obviously playing that Big Ten schedule. There's not a lot of mobile quarterbacks in that Big Ten right now. And honestly, on their entire schedule, they didn't really face a true mobile quarterback, which Riley Leonard is. So Indiana's only allowing 76 yards per game on the ground. Fantastic defense when it comes to stopping the run. However, one thing they have not had a lot of practice in and a lot of success in is stopping a mobile quarterback, which is what Notre Dame's bread and butter is. Get Riley Leonard on the move, Riley Leonard out of the pocket, make things happen with his arm, or he's going to take off and run. And that's where I think that this game is going to be won. This game is going to be very, very low scoring. These 2 defenses are going to be at the best that they've been all season. Indiana is going to be focusing on stopping the run. Meanwhile, Notre Dame only allowing 158 passing yards per game all season, and they played some great passing teams like Texas A&M earlier in the season. Just to name one, USC obviously has a pretty heavy passing attack as well. So I think Notre Dame has been tested when it comes to quarterbacks with big arms and great wide receivers. I don't feel like Indiana has been tested when it comes to the mobility of at the quarterback position, which is why I think Notre Dame is going to kind of take things. I do think this is a low-scoring game. I do think Notre Dame wins. I think it's a 2-possession game, but I think the game's a lot closer than that score kind of dictates. But Notre Dame, I think, is going to take care of business.
So obviously I have Indiana here, and I think the big thing is I look at the game Notre Dame versus USC. And Alex, you bring up good points about what Notre Dame's pass defenses look like all season, but you look at a USC team who was really uncertain about what they had at the quarterback position there, and that Jordan Maeva's first game starting there with that USC team, and he was able to have 3 touchdowns and 360 yards throughout the air against that Notre Dame defense. So I think when you go up against teams that are, a team like USC, where I look at Indiana's offense and I think it's better, and especially more consistent quarterback play there. And that game ultimately ended up being 49-35. We know the issues that USC always has on defense there, and they also threw 2 pick sixes in that game. So I think the big thing in this one is going to be limiting the turnover. You see that in the big games that Notre Dame has had this year. They've been able to get huge turnovers there in those games. You look at the game against Navy and Army, and it's funny to call those big games, but I mean, just looking at their schedule, you definitely have to view them that way. Or even A&M and their game against USC as well. They find ways to take the ball away from the opposing team's offense and cash in on those opportunities. I think that's going to be the big thing this year. You definitely look at it on the flip side of it for Notre Dame. They're going to want to run the ball, and I think that kind of plays in the Indiana strengths there. Obviously, we know how good the Indiana defense has been against the run, even against that in that game against Ohio State. They held up pretty well against the run in general there. So I think the keys to victory for that Indiana team are going to be not turning the ball over and to just continue to play with pace. If you're able to beat Notre Dame over the top and get those explosive plays, you're going to have an opportunity to win that football game, especially if that means that Riley Leonard has to turn into a passer of the football. So for me, I think Indiana's had, everything circled on their calendar there. You see, you only lose one game and you get the disrespect of getting a 10. Kirk Szn, I think he's insane for thinking this, but Kirk Szn thought they should have hosted a playoff game. I think that's why they shouldn't have been a top 8 seed. But I do think that Indiana team going 11-1, it definitely means something. And I think they got the better quarterback here. And that's ultimately who I am going to roll with, obviously, because I'm defending my team here. But I would have picked them regardless. If I got drafted them or not, I'm rolling with Indiana to win this football game. I think they take care of business and show that yet another year of Notre Dame being quite literally fool's gold.
I just must miss the memo on joining the Indiana football cult this year. I'm going to go back and check my email back in September. I don't know.
Check your spam box.
It might went to junk or something, or I clearly didn't get my glass of Kool-Aid from somebody.
Bill,
shit's wild.
I am fully aware of Curtis Rourke. You know why? Where did he go to school previously to Indiana?
Why does this escape me?
Kent State?
Close, very close. Same state, same conference.
Oh God, I don't even know who else is in that conference. Kennesaw State.
Oh,
what?
Brother. Oh.
I don't know who's in that conference.
We're talking Maction, man. Maction.
Bro.
I know. I don't pay attention to the MAC.
Well, you said
that's
Kent,
your mistake
Ohio.
right there.
So it's either Toledo, Miami of Ohio.
No to both those. So you're rolling though. See, I love the Mac love.
Marshall.
No, they're not in the MAC. Bowling Green's not Ohio, right?
Bowling Green is in Ohio. They are right by Toledo, but they are not the ones you are. I mean, you got damn near all of them at this point.
Ohio Bobcats.
Ohio University. So I'm familiar with Curtis Rourke and his game there, because he's been shredding the MAC for the last 2 years before going to Indiana there. But I mean, Curtis Rourke's a guy that doesn't turn the ball over, and I think with Ben Morrison obviously being out since October for Notre Dame and that secondary, I think it's going to be big. Indiana's going to be able to get the explosive play and take care of business against this Notre Dame team.
We're going to find out. I'm liking my chances to get the first point of the season.
And guess what? I tell you right now, I can't wait to argue Indiana over Georgia, especially knowing that Carson Beck won't be there.
Can you show the bracket one more time, Control, if you have that available?
Absolutely.
Just real quick. All right, so we had me and you argue this one. Next week, we're going to have me and Bill arguing SMU Penn State, and then we're going to have Bill and you arguing Tennessee Ohio State, and then
I'm not really going to argue.
Clemson Texas. Clemson Texas is me and Kittrell. So we have 3 different matchups next week, which I like. 3 different argumentative matchups. So
this is fun because I know I get to argue against Alex, and I like my team's chances in winning both of those arguments. So I can't wait to hear your Dabo argument. That's going to be.
Oh, fuck. This is going to be a nightmare.
That's going to be a fun one.
If I would have got stuck with Indiana, I would have given you more pushback with Indiana versus Notre Dame than I'm going to with Tennessee and Ohio State. So,
look, y'all, all I know is Cade Klubnik's Snapchat got leaked, and he's not asking girls for pictures. He's asking them to go geocaching with him. So I might jump on this Clemson bandwagon here if this keeps up.
Clemson sends Texas home, man. Good Lord. I mean, if either one of those games go the way that they're not supposed to go, it becomes very interesting. Again, I mean, I don't think anything goes wrong with Sark, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on if Ryan Day loses that game?
Well, they already came out and said that he's keeping his job.
I know what they said, but I also think they're under the impression that they're going to at least get another shot at you guys in 2 weeks.
I think that Ross Bork is an AD that is very results oriented, and I think that he came out and said that, and he also came out and said that you got to de-emphasize the game. I also think that he's saying everything that Ryan Day needs to hear right now. I think he wants to have Ryan Day go into this playoff with all the confidence in the world, and by saying you're coaching for your job. Like, I don't think that's the right way to approach it because, we've seen how important the game is to him and how tight he's kind of gotten in those moments. So I think by saying that, you give him the opportunity to really feel free and feel like, all right, we obviously want to win the game, but if we don't win it, it's not the end of the world in a sense. Like, I know he's not thinking like that, but I think you want to at least instill the confidence in him. Like, this is still your job. So I think it's important to say one thing, but if I'm being honest, I do think those conversations will be had behind closed doors about, hey, maybe Ryan Day is not the guy. And I think to Justin's point earlier, about hardline waiting for Ryan Day, I think if you want to, get rid of Day, and they brought up money as a thing with that whole situation. I think if you want to get rid of Day, you don't necessarily have to bring in another $15 million head coach when you have Brian Hartline there. I think you can at least give him a shot.
Absolutely. Hartline's the guy, I think.
Yeah, you can give Hartline a shot to see if he can, run the program, and you can give him a short lease. You can give him a 2-year, not a 2-year deal, but you can only, you can have him as your head coach and say, hey, let's see what happens within these 2 years. If you make it happen, cool, we'll commit to you long term. If you don't make it happen, now we're out from under Ryan Day's contract, and we can go spend a ton of money to get, whatever the big name coach is at that time. So I think it's important to say one thing, but behind closed door, I do think the conversations will be had if you lose to Tennessee. Now, if you lose to Oregon or later on in the playoff, I think
if you lose to Oregon, I think he's fine.
I think it's a different story. But if you lose to Tennessee, I do think those conversations will be had. And I don't think his job is safe. I'll say that. You're not safe until you beat Tennessee.
It's really funny though that you said that about them saying like saying what we want, what he wants to hear to give him confidence so he doesn't doubt himself going into the games.
It's smart.
But I agree. But on that same coin, wouldn't you think that again, this is a different topic. I don't mean to change topics. Wouldn't you think that it would be the same kind of mindset for Quinn Ewers? Like, you're getting ready for Texas for your first round college football playoff game. Why are we hearing about these offers to you in the portal? You should be shutting that shit out and focusing on the task at hand.
Yeah. I mean, in his defense, I think the way everything leaks, I think he kind of wanted to get ahead of it and say like, hey, like was offered to me. I haven't said I'm taking. I'm getting ready for the game. Versus, again, it leaking down the line, and then it becomes a bigger distraction because then it becomes more of like breaking news type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like with him being the one that said it, he talked about it, moved on, and whatever. If it leaks from somebody else, then it's like, well, is this true? And then, well, who is it? Is it? It becomes a bigger story if the news gets to have their narrative with it and breaks it first. So, I guess to circle back to the other thing though, if you're Heartline, if you get offered the job, do you keep Chip Kelly? Because my answer would be no.
No, hell no.
Bring in your own staff.
Well, not necessarily your own staff, because he's been there for a while with a lot of these guys,
bro.
But you get rid of Chip Kelly for sure.
And then B, if it's not Heartline, like I feel like the list for that job is actually very short. I think obviously you could make the argument to bring Freeman home from Notre Dame, and I think if he calls, if they call, he has to listen. I think it's a better job. I do. I think he has more freedom in Ohio State than he does in Notre Dame. After that, I don't know. Like, I never would have thought Ryan Day. Like, if you would ask me 10 years ago if Ryan Day would be the head coach of Ohio State, I would say no, because with Urban there, and then Urban kind of picked his successor. So that's kind of how Ryan Day got it. I don't know if Ryan Day comes out of another school if he wasn't in Ohio State and gets that job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. I guess I don't think there's another big name where I would think that either A, has connections to the program, which they like to do, or B, looks at Ohio. Like, I feel like they would have to be coming from another big school, and then I think it becomes a conversation which is the better job. And that being said, I obviously think Ohio State's a top 10 job. So I don't know.
I mean, for me, Justin, to your question, I'll be clamoring for his job. He does win Natty. Yes, I mean, I do think it would be time for a change there, because you can't lose to Michigan 4 years in a row, especially I'd say 3 of the 4 seasons, 2023. So last year would have been the one where I think the rosters were equal, if not Michigan's being better as a whole there. But 3 out of the 4 years, you had the better team. And, this past year, you head and shoulders, you had the better team. Michigan's a 7-5 football team, and you were 1 point away from beating Oregon, who's coasted against quite literally everybody. So I think that would be an inexcusable thing to have that happen. And if you have a playoff game where you wet the bed, or you lose to Tennessee, it'd be one thing, I guess, to lose to Oregon. I personally would still want him gone, just because the expectations here are different. With that said, I fall on this how I fell on the whole McCord situation last year. I don't necessarily want to say that guys are getting scapegoated per se. I think Ryan Day is a really good coach. I thought Kyle McCord was a good quarterback. I just don't think that they are the guys for this program if you can't win. It's the cliche thing to say, but the standard is just different. 10-2 season and losing to Michigan, that's not good for us at all. Like, I don't care about 10-2. A lot of schools would kill to be 10-2 and make the college football playoff. That doesn't matter to me.
No, I mean, it's true. The reason you look at Ohio State, Bama, and to some degree, Clemson for a while. I think Michigan will get back there, after Harbaugh finally turned it around, and I think more will get there. But the reason those schools are the way they are and they have success every year is because it is a standard, and they don't make excuses if you don't reach it. You get another school that comes in like, I thought we were gonna have like 10-win season, but blah 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 got hurt, blah blah blah, and we had 7 wins. It's okay. Like, those schools are successful and great because they don't make excuses like that. There is no substitute for winning. And if you want to stay on the top and you want to be a top 10 program, then that's the way you have to run it. And and to Cottrell's point, I mean, you take outside of Alabama in the last decade, the argument is Georgia and Ohio State for the best, the next 2 best programs in the country. You don't get there by making exceptions to the standards that you set. So, you have to give credit where it's due, but to the same point, as much as you might like Ryan Day or look at his record and be like, if you take Michigan out of it, he's only lost like 4 games and 2 of them were in college football playoffs. The end of the discussion is it's still he's not getting over the hump, and that's what makes it tough. And it would be and trust me, even as being an anti-Ohio State guy, there's part of me that would look at it and be like, you're firing an elite coach, which he is. You can cut it. I don't like him. I don't like his like personality. Like I think he's a good coach. I think he's a great recruiter, and he cares about his kids. Which, being from an outside point of view, those are the 3 things, in my opinion, that matter. But part of me would be like, yo, that's like they just fired an elite football coach. Like that's wild to me. But you don't become an elite program without having those standards. And if you waver on them or make exceptions for them, you kind of don't become an elite program anymore. So it's going to be interesting. I think all this is, it's a fun conversation, and I'm glad we had it to finish the show. I don't think there's a shot in hell to lose in Tennessee, so I don't think it matters.
Really?
But
I don't think that. You better for next week because you're arguing for Tennessee.
I'm not.
I will
Horseshoe at night.
Well, Bill, your team is literally Tennessee, so you got to find a way to defend Tennessee.
Urban is the one that, honestly, I'd say change the standard in the sense of he went out, starting quarterback goes down, is out for the year or whatever. You get JT Barrett in. JT Barrett goes down, and then he goes and wins a national championship with the 3rd string quarterback. If you can do that at Ohio State, then when you have everybody healthy and you get to handpick all your guys, and like I said, everybody stays healthy, and especially now kids are coming out the portal, there's no excuse not to win. So even if if Will Howard goes down, the same expectations are still there for me personally, and a lot of other Ohio State fans as well. Is that realistic? Probably not, no, but that standard has been set.
I think, listen, I mean, if you know me at all, you know my personal thoughts on Urban Meyer. I think between the lines, I think he's one of the best to ever do it, and I mean that. But I think he cut corners. I think he let egregious things go, and it is what it is. But he's a great football coach. It's strictly turking X and O's, what he expected from his players, and to Cottrell's last point there, what he got from his players. I also think college football is a little bit different now. It's changed even. It's taken a pretty significant change even since he's been gone. Yeah, I mean, if you look at anything behind the scenes with him, anytime he talks, or even he talks about the way he handled things, there was an expectation, and there was no ambiguity with him. It was either you met it or you didn't, and if you didn't, you probably didn't play. And cut and dry, it sounds heartless. They're kids, but his job, he gets paid millions of dollars to win football games. That's what he gets done. That's what he does. So, this is a fun conversation. I'm glad we had it. Like I said, I don't think it's going to matter, but, it is.
Alex, you will feel the exact same way moving forward. No matter how the season ends up, Dan Lanning is turning that program around. And, I don't, again,
yeah,
I don't
like nine
is happening this year.
9 wins isn't acceptable for you anymore.
Yeah, I don't think national championship happens this year, obviously, but I think moving forward, Dan is going to have one in the next 3 years, and a 9-win season will no longer be acceptable for you.
You'll hate it.
Yeah, no, I already hate it. But Justin, just so you know, the puppy's name is Bronco, and he is a Boise State fan. He is cheering for Ashton Jeanty to win the Heisman Trophy tonight, and I had to argue for Ashton Jeanty today for Bronco because he's partial. But I think that kind of wraps us up. I mean, we got game Friday for college football playoff. We got all the other 3 games next Saturday, which we're going to heavily debate and talk about. And Army Navy kicks off here in 3 hours?
Yep.
All right, we got some time to enjoy our Saturday, get some stuff done before some football kicks off. But I'm ready.
Everybody, go sign up for Bowl Mania. It's up on the page. We'll go ahead and share it again.
Yeah. Just a reminder: all 3 of us tied last year, and nobody beat us. Nobody beat us 3. What's up with us in tying? What's up with us in tying? We tie a lot, but yeah, all 3 of us had a winning record last year. We were the top 3 on the charts. So I'm dying for somebody to beat us this year and come be a guest host with us on the show.
It will be fun. All right, gents, enjoy your Saturdays. This is kind of the last quiet one we have for a while, so I'm going to enjoy it, be Army Navy at the same time, but also I cannot wait to be back on next Saturday morning with you guys because it's going to be finally get what we wanted as fans.
Heck
So next
And
Saturday,
we get the recap of college football game.
We got a
That's
recap. We'll have our bracket and then 3 more previews. It's going to be great. So, boys, enjoy your weekend. Everybody that's listening, thank you as always. And we will be back next Saturday, bright and early.
All right, see you
Saturday.
guys.
Laters.